Broadcasting from the Cass Corridor in Detroit, this is The Metro, a slice of news, culture, and conversation. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. Today on the program, it's March Madness. So we're thinking about how college sports are changing and more people are placing bets.
They are, and college athletes are finally getting paid. Kind of. But this is still a murky game. So who are the big winners and losers?
And, well, we've talked a lot about homelessness here in the city of Detroit and how to make a dent in the problem. We'll hear about one potential solution.
But first, you've heard of housing and food insecurity. What about energy insecurity? That's when a person can't afford energy for basic needs. Powering appliances and heating and cooling your home are out of reach. It's an issue that touches every facet of life. It can make it hard to hold down a job, hard to get to school, hard to stay healthy. DTE Energy recently filed another request for its plan to raise rates. We should note that request will take multiple months of reviews. Residents wouldn't see a rate hike till next year if it's approved. Now, this rate hike request comes just months after Michigan regulators approved another DTE rate increase. In January, the utility was okayed to raise rates by $217 million. Rate hikes aren't the only thing worrying advocates. Shutoffs for non-payment are a big part of DTE operations. A recent report by the Center for Biological Diversity says last year, DTE shut off electricity 150,000 times for residents who couldn't pay their bills between January and September.
Yeah, Robin. The report also says DTE customers already have some of the highest residential rates in the country. The average bill is 17% more than that of the Great Lakes region average. In a recent statement, DTE's Ryan Lowry said DTE and its agency partners offer a variety of assistance options to help those in need. And last year alone, we connected customers to nearly $144 million in energy assistance. He said DTE was proud to see Governor Whitmer sign 4 pieces of legislation into law to double the funding available for low-income Michiganders, which is under the Michigan Energy Assistance Program. Advocates say increasing energy costs, shutoffs, and DTE's reliance on fossil fuels are a big problem. So today we're asking how folks can have more power, so to speak. Kari Frazier is with Solidarity. That's a nonprofit working to make energy accessible and affordable to all. Kari, welcome to the Metro.
Welcome. How are you all?
Doing really well. How are you?
Good. Definitely always great to talk energy democracy, especially from the Solidarity lens.
And I love that because we are going to get into what that actually means. But first off, Kari, briefly give us a sense of what you've been hearing on the ground from residents about their energy costs. How are energy rates affecting people locally? We just heard about those shutoffs. Like, what's going on?
Well, definitely in the shutoff notice, people need to understand that when you deal with that, you're not just dealing with your energy being cut. You're dealing with the feeder turning back on. You're going to probably exhaust whatever programs are available. And then the programs to even engage in a lot of this, oftentimes residents will say can be very intrusive. All of the information and data that they're asking for and identification, it can just only add to the stressors that you're already facing. We know the bills are coming. You pay a bill and you're looking at the very next bill as you're paying the one that you just paid. As I just got my new bills in and I'm looking at, hundreds of dollars because that's what we're all facing. So on the ground, people are very frustrated because of the cost, and not just the cost. We really have to look at the product that's being delivered. We're paying for the highest prices of energy across the nation, close, and also the reliability of this service. Anytime it's a storm, the wind last week, people are wondering, will I even have energy to hold on to? And then also just the disrespect of this corporation when your energy does go out. I mean, the small stipend that you are given is something that Solidarity fought for, but it's nothing like if you're in a business that many people, such as myself, work from home right now, or many people actually work from home with their job, and you'll be out for 2 days. So it's the cost that we're paying always paying more, and the fact that it's not that reliable, it just doesn't work out.
I thought about that last week when we had strong winds. I thought, let me hurry up and charge everything. Let me make sure everything's good to go because we will lose power. It will happen. It's not a if, it's just a when because we know it's going to happen. But speaking of solidarity, you used the term energy democracy. Can you explain what that actually means a little bit and what it means to Metro Detroit?
Okay, so first off, I have to really get into the story of solidarity to explain what this is. So solidarity starts as any community organizing effort. It starts in response to all of the street lights being captured from Highland Park. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Highland Park does not have street lights because of disputes between, at the time, the Highland Park administration and DTE. So that immediately leads for residents to be left in the darkness when you would expect streetlights to happen. Residents say, what can we do? Let's go about getting some solar streetlights. That seems like a very practical response. Let's move on that. Solar power is something that we could do. Not exactly, because one of the biggest lobbying against us having access for solar power is actually DTE. So energy democracy actually empowers us to choose how we want to power our communities, how we want to empower our homes, how we want to choose, hence the whole concept of it being democratic, what we want for our own energy. And that's the other thing that makes these rate increases all the time even worse. It's the fact that we don't even have a choice. This is a natural monopoly. So as a natural monopoly, they always are raising their rates. We don't have the choice for solar power. We don't have the options that people across the nation have. And even the option of looking at this being something that is public controlled. So residents of Highland Park that are still paying bills for DTE for their homes still have to deal with the challenge of not having streetlights because of an act that was done over a decade ago. And solidarity has been organizing first on the grounds, grassroots, very pragmatic, but it became very political and policy driven as just trying to get a solar streetlight is something that you're going to have to contact so many people to move on.
And just really quickly, because folks, it's a really actually cool project that happened in Highland Park with Solidarity and the partners that you use. I can't think of the name, but I remember covering the story, the streetlights going in, Mama Shoe, and the work that was happening in Highland Park just to power one one block.
Yes.
Have you seen any movement since then? Have we seen more, or is it still something that's uphill battle trying to get these solar?
It is always a battle,
but
that's a battle that knowing that community organizing against especially strong corporate interests is going to be a fight. This year, we're going to do something grand and grandiose on a block in Highland Park, and it's going to take place in June. We're going to do a street light flashlight party. So we're welcoming people to give, and we're going to empower different blocks and communities throughout Highland Park. And we've been doing so many different efforts with other partners like We Want Green and others that have stood by, Parker Village, and definitely you uplifted Mama Shoe and Avalon Village.
Yes.
So the partners and the work of Highland Park and Detroit in being active about how we can get renewable, clean energy that is affordable for people, this is something that everybody buys into.
Yes, and staying on the topic of democratic control over our power, DTE would say that Michigan residents technically control what happens to its power because we have the in-state Michigan Public Service Commission, which determines whether rate hikes happen or not. What do you make of this perspective?
It's one of those things that is very savvy political statement. These are appointed figures, so appointed by the governor. So you can sort of say that that's some democratic control. And then you look at the amount of lobbying that DTE spends every year throughout the pockets of so many politicians. And you often say, why are they lobbying this much for politicians? And here's another classic one. Why are they spending so much money on commercials? Why are they trying to sway public opinion when I don't even have an option? I don't have an option of what to choose. So why are they always looking to influence and sell me on them being a steward in community? And all of the community efforts that they do, which is great community efforts, but what would be better if you're not shutting off people's power? It would be better if we could just keep the rates at what they're at. Every time they're asking for hundreds of millions of dollars. So the rate that just went into effect that's impacting our bills right now, $217 million, I believe. But originally they were asking for $500 million plus. So now they're looking to get that and get extra. And that's just the electric and also the gas. So every chance that DTE can ask for a rate increase for this Michigan Public Service Commission, they are asking and usually getting. So it's taking a lot of organizing from groups like Solidarity and many others to work and always advocate for the people to say that this is already ridiculous. And I already hear the voice of so many people that work with DTE saying that a lot of the advocacy and a lot of this money is going to be to make it safer, make it renewable, make it clean, make it better. What would make it better is if we look at the skyrocketing profits, especially like coming out of COVID, that they were making, the money that their shareholders are getting. So this is a place where a corporation that has control over something that doesn't have any competition. They fight against competition coming to it, and they're always raising rates of residents, which is impacting Black and working communities the most. Not fair.
You're listening to The Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. We're talking about rising energy costs in Metro Detroit and how people can take the power back. Our guest is Kari Frazier of Solidarity. That's a nonprofit working to make energy accessible and affordable to all. Now, Kari, the recent report we mentioned at the top by the Center for Biological Diversity argues that DTE is uniquely predatory toward its low-income customers. In 2023, it required over 48,000 residents to pay for their bills in cash. And it called this policy vindictive. What do you make of that?
I would say that making a statement like that is opinion-based. And with that opinion, and this is Kari's opinion of that, I just hear like so many voices coming in that would be a lot of the allies through our community where DTE would say, well, we support THAW and we support this church and we support this effort and we have all of these options. The reality is I kind of agree with that opinion that was raised. DTE has gone out its way, even from when I was younger, to distance itself from actually having one-on-one interactions with people. Even my neighborhood, like a lot of neighborhoods, you know, so much work was done on my block and a notice was sent, but these notices are sent with to be determined dates. Just the way that DTE goes out of its way to not interact with customers as if we're human. You know, the offices that would be filled and sometimes some of the toughest experiences were at least a way to talk to a person. And that is one of the biggest challenges that we feel as people paying for this service. If I feel as though I'm talking to a call matrix, or it's going to be very digital to even have a discussion about how I can keep my lights on. And it's other things that DTE has done that have been very predatory too. The rate increase between the hours of 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. that I don't think many people remember or know about.
Right.
But it's like, okay, but the rest of the day, everything else will cost less. These are the hours when homework is happening. You're going to be most active. You're going to be cooking dinner. And this is when you're going to charge me more for my energy.
Advocates are saying that this is also hitting low-income folks, especially hard, vulnerable folks, to have these certain hours for higher rates. I want to talk for a moment about bills in the State House to launch community solar projects that have had bipartisan support. But energy utilities, DTE, and Consumers Energy have lobbied against these bills. DTE spent $650,000 lobbying in 2024. Now, they have made the argument, and these bills have not moved forward. The most recent ones are considered dead in the House. They've made the argument that they would raise electricity rates. It sounds like it's going to be hard to pass this kind of legislation. What other clear paths forward do you see?
So this is where it takes that boots on the ground work, Fannie Lou Hamer type effort. because community solar is going to be an effort where the onus is really on myself working in communication, making it direct and clear for a lot of people. Getting a home solar ready takes a lot of steps, especially when we think of the housing stock throughout the city of Detroit. The housing stock and what needs to happen and making sure that this can happen will be a lot of steps just for solar power to happen in a home. Furthermore, the buy-in of the energy democracy of community solar. But similar to community land trusts, we can think of this as like a community energy trust. That's going to be the framework that I'm going to be pushing myself and many others that work with Solidarity to frame this in the right lens, because we're looking at systems across the nation fall apart that we can no longer rely on. So we need to be more community-based, period. So the sooner that we can start on this path and move on that path, the better. A community solar model is similar to what I see as a community land trust, will have buy-in from all members in different ways of how we can pull our power. Because the minute that we get one or two solar panels on the block, that's going to help everyone else on the block. And the more that we can see that functionality, see the impact, now that you have money to spend on whatever your other home repair is, your entrepreneurial pursuits, or vacation, whatever you may do, now you're no longer stressed with the energy burden that many of us always face.
Let's stay on the topic real quick before we let you go of solar panels and more broadly solar farms. About 2/3 of Americans want to prioritize developing wind and solar power over fossil fuels. That's according to Pew Research Center. The cost to produce those forms of energy has gone down, but renewable energy requires 10 times the land area as coal or gas. And we know that there's NIMBYism, i.e. not in my backyard, getting in the way of this kind of development. How do you convince people who don't want to see solar farms or wind turbines in their backyards?
Well, this is one of those things where, along with DTE, and I think that they're kind of in that space, the city of Detroit's efforts with the neighborhood solar, which I don't see as a community solar project. It looks as if DTE will be the contractor that will execute the solar for that project. Now, that's a Kari Frazier statement, and all signs look in that direction. It's going to be inclusive. The way you make it not in my backyard is include people in the process. Right? So the neighborhood solar project doesn't give power to the neighborhood, doesn't give power to the people. If you explain and share with people that say, like, look, we're going to get this solar farm here and now your bills are going to go down 60%, I believe you're going to get a lot of people to buy into what that project is. So it must be inclusive. The challenge becomes a lot of the places where we look at as desolate or empty space are from communities that are struggling with a lot of those economic stressors. So they're not included in the process. So you need to spend more effort, more time organizing and make sure that it's completely plain and you're sharing with whatever the benefits that you're looking for is shared with that community.
Kari Frazier is with Solidarity. That's a nonprofit working to make energy accessible and affordable to all. Kari, thank you for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you.
The Metro will keep you updated on DTE's proposed rate increases. We did reach out to DTE for this conversation, and stay tuned for future coverage when we hope to be speaking with some representatives from that utility.
Coming up at 11, sports are changing from legalized sports betting to college athletes getting paid. Is the fan experience getting better as a result? Is sports betting ruining the fan experience altogether? And should college athletes get paid? We'll take your calls, 313-577-1019. And up next, a law preventing tax foreclosures will be phased out in July unless it's renewed by state lawmakers. One local housing analyst believes it needs to be kept around or homelessness in Detroit will increase. This is the Metro. Stay with us.